They said, "You're just a half-sibling. This is a real family matter." So I sat back while they divided Grandma's house. Too bad I owned 40% of it. Guess who just sold it to Airbnb investors? They called me a half-sibling, like it was a curse word. Like my father falling in love again after my mother died was some kind of betrayal. Like me being born from that love made me less than. I'm Noah, 28, male. Technically the half-brother of three siblings. Matthew, 35, Rachel, 33, and Emma, 31. We all share the same father, Edward, who passed away 5 years ago from a heart attack. He was the rock of the family, the kind of man who didn't raise his voice unless it was to cheer at football games or laugh at his own dad jokes. When he died, something broke between us. Or maybe it was already cracked and none of us noticed until the glue was gone. Our grandmother, Lorraine, died 3 months ago. She was the last living link we all had, matriarch of the family. Her house in Connecticut was old, creaky, and smelled like eucalyptus and baked apples. She left it to all of us in her will, split 4 ways. No sentimental speeches, no cryptic notes, just a line that said, "My house shall be divided equally among my grandchildren, Matthew, Rachel, Emma, and Noah." I was shocked when the lawyer read that. I figured they'd fight it, especially since the last 5 years have felt like a slow exile. But it was legal. On paper, I was as much an heir as any of them. That didn't sit well with the real kids. They started planning without me, sent messages in a group chat they knew I wasn't in. Rachel's husband, Colin, 36, had a contractor buddy who was already looking at renovation bids. Emma was pinning farmhouse-style Airbnbs for inspiration. Matthew straight up changed the locks for security. I found out through a cousin. When I finally confronted them, calmly, trying to be the bigger man, they barely looked up from their phones. "You're just a half-sibling, Noah," Rachel said, with this fake sweet voice she uses when she's about to say something cruel. "This is a real family matter." Real, family, matter. Those words knocked the air out of me, like I'd been punched but couldn't find where it hurt first. I stared at them. Matthew wouldn't even make eye contact. Emma, who used to beg me to play her imaginary games when we were kids, wouldn't speak. Rachel just sipped her coffee, so I nodded, said nothing, walked out of that house, my house, 25% of it legally, and didn't look back. But I remembered. See what they forgot? Our grandmother didn't just give us the house. She gave me something else too. When she got sick, I was the one who came around, helped her sort mail, took her to appointments, played chess while her hands shook too much to move the pieces herself. She'd whisper things to me sometimes, stories about my father, about her own regrets, about how family isn't always who you share blood with, it's who you bleed for. Before she passed, she had the deed revised, not just an even split. She made me executor. I owned 40%, and I'd been quiet, until now. I didn't say a word for 2 months, just watched the group texts roll in, sent by Rachel mostly, talking about paint swatches, furniture ideas, which cousin could get them a discount on hardwood flooring. They thought I was being mature by staying out of it. I think Emma even called it gracious, like I was some poor relation being noble for not making a fuss. Truth was, I was waiting, watching, letting them dig the hole deeper. Because if there's one thing you learn being the outsider in your own family, it's how to read the room. And right now, the room was filled with overconfident, entitled people who had no idea how property law, or reality, worked. Matthew even mentioned in passing that he was going to move in temporarily, just until they sorted out the Airbnb remodel. This man, who hadn't texted me once since our father's funeral, was installing himself in a house I partially owned, using a key I had the right to change. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I played dumb, showed up once with takeout, just to visit Grandma's place. Rachel nearly choked on her wine when she saw me at the door. "Oh," she said, holding the door like I was selling something. "Did you need something?" "I just wanted to see the house," I said, stepping past her before she could finish the sentence. "My house too, right?" The silence that followed was delicious. Matthew was sitting in the living room, a laptop open and blueprints on the table. He didn't even pretend to be polite. "You should have texted first," he muttered. "I tried," I said, flipping one of the prints around to read it. But you know, hard to text a group I was never added to. Emma was in the kitchen. She didn't say a word, just kept slicing cucumbers like she was on a cooking show, and this was all beneath her. I stayed for exactly 10 minutes, just long enough to count the wine glasses, spot the new rug, and see the boxes labeled with Rachel's handwriting that said Airbnb inventory. When I left, I smiled, because that's when I knew they weren't going to offer to buy me out. They weren't going to acknowledge my share. They were just going to act like I didn't exist and hope I'd vanish. But I didn't vanish. I lawyered up, and I started having conversations. The kind of conversations you have when you own 40% of a property being illegally converted into a business without your consent. The kind of conversations that end with phrases like cease and desist and forced sale, and breach of agreement. They thought I was just a half-sibling. They forgot that half still meant blood. And in this case, it meant leverage. 3 weeks after that little house visit, I got a voicemail from Rachel that started sweet and ended with her practically hissing, "Noah, hi, we were just wondering," well, actually, I was wondering, "if maybe you'd consider signing over your share. We could, work something out. A small lump sum or maybe recurring dividends once the Airbnb gets going. Think of it like passive income. You wouldn't even have to deal with the hassle." Hassle. That's what my inheritance was to her. A hassle. I didn't respond. So she tried again, this time with Emma on speaker, both of them tag-teaming the fake warmth like a damn customer service script. "Noah, babe," Emma chirped. "It's not about excluding you. We just didn't want to burden you with the details. I mean, this house has always been kind of ours, you know? I do know. I've known since I was 10 and they stopped letting me sit with them at family dinners. Since they, accidentally, left me off the invite list for Emma's graduation party. Since Rachel told me, straight-faced at our father's wake, that I was lucky he left me anything at all. Now they wanted me to roll over, take a check, and disappear. So I did what any burden would do. I called up the same real estate lawyer who handled Grandma's estate, told him I wanted to initiate a partition action for the uninitiated. That's when one or more co-owners of a property can't agree on what to do with it. So the court forces a sale. We each get our percentage in cash, but the property, gone. Sold. No renovations, no farmhouse sink, no cozy guest house out back with a damn hot tub. Gone. It was nuclear, yes, but I was past the point of negotiation. These people didn't want compromise, they wanted erasure. The lawyer sent the first letter that week. Certified mail. Signature required. 2 days later, Matthew showed up at my apartment. Not text, not call, not email. He showed up, pounding on my door like he was the cops. I opened it a crack, and he shoved his boot inside. "We need to talk," he growled. "You could have called," I said flatly, holding my ground. "You're seriously trying to destroy this house? Our family's house?" "No," I said, cold. "I'm trying to make sure I get what I'm owed. If you wanted to treat me like family, you should have done it before you started picking out paint colors." He started shouting then. Real rage. That red-faced, veins-bulging kind of shouting that makes the neighbors turn on their porch lights. "You don't understand what you're doing. Rachel's sunk thousands into this already. Emma put in time. Did they ask my permission?" I snapped. "Did they even think to include me in one single meeting?" Matthew actually spit on my welcome mat. "You were always the outsider," he hissed. "No one wanted you around then, and no one wants you around now. So name your price and walk away." But see, that was the mistake, because it was never about the price. It was about the message. And I hadn't even started speaking yet. 2 nights after Matthew's tantrum on my doorstep, I got a text from Emma. Just a link. No context, no emoji, just a Zillow listing. It was the house. Grandma's house. Listed at $1.1 million. Charming colonial with vintage details and modern updates. Ideal for short-term rental conversion. My stomach turned. My name wasn't anywhere in the listing, of course. But there were photos, taken recently, of rooms I helped clean, walls I'd painted when I was 17, the porch swing I'd sanded and repainted with my grandmother the summer before she passed. They were staging it, like I didn't exist. I called my lawyer, shaking. "Is this legal?" I asked. "Absolutely not," he replied, calm as ever. "They're attempting to sell without full consent. You own 40%. They can't move forward unless you sign off, which you haven't. And if I don't," he chuckled, "then they're screwed. But if you want to play chess instead of checkers, I have a few ideas." He explained how I could force not just a sale, but my sale of my 40% share to an outside party. Someone who didn't care about family dynamics. Someone who wanted ROI, not reconciliation. That night, I did some research. Turns out, Connecticut has no restrictions on selling minority ownership stakes in property, especially not when the other parties are actively violating the co-ownership terms. By morning, I had 3 potential buyers. Airbnb investors, not corporations, individuals. The kind who bought fractional ownerships, then took legal action to push the other owners into either buying them out or getting the hell out of the way. Vultures, basically. My kind of people. I chose the most aggressive one. A woman named Sonia, mid-40s, sharp as glass. She'd sued an HOA into oblivion last year for trying to block her rentals. She offered me 90% of market value for my share, in cash. It was done within the week, and that's when the real chaos started. Because Sonia didn't waste time. She marched into the house, our house, 2 days after the sale, with a lawyer, a clipboard, and 2 Airbnb design consultants. Rachel called me within an hour, shrieking, actual shrieking, like the sound a car makes when the brakes go out. "What did you do? Who is this woman? She's in my kitchen." I just said, "You mean our kitchen?" and hung up. Emma texted next, trying a softer approach. Noah, please, this is serious. We can't have strangers buying up the family legacy. I replied with a screenshot of their Zillow listing and one word, exactly. The final message came from Matthew. You just declared war, he wrote. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back, no, you did. I just stopped playing nice. Update 1. And y'all, I wasn't ready. I thought I was playing it cool. You know, big bad half-brother making legal power moves, sleeping easy while they scrambled. But when Matthew and Rachel showed up at my job, unannounced, middle of the damn workday, I realized just how unhinged they'd gotten. I work in real estate finance, nothing flashy. Office building, glass walls, lots of khakis. I was on a Zoom call when our front desk buzzed and said, there's a Matthew and Rachel here to see you. They say it's urgent family business? My stomach dropped. I told the receptionist I wasn't available. She called back 5 minutes later, whispering now, they're refusing to leave. So I walked out to the lobby, and boom, there they were. Rachel in some designer coat like she was storming a brunch, Matthew pacing like a coked-up Labrador. Rachel spotted me and immediately launched into a performance. You sold your share to a stranger? Are you seriously this bitter? You're letting these investors tear apart Grandma's legacy? I cut her off. Y'all listed it on Zillow. You were literally trying to do the same thing, just without me getting paid. Matthew got in my face. You blindsided us. You didn't even try to work this out. This is petty, Noah. Petty. That word triggered something in me. Because what they really meant was, you stopped letting us walk all over you. I looked around. People were staring. Phones out. My boss peeked out of her office like, is this a domestic disturbance? So I smiled, looked Matthew dead in the eye and said, you have 60 days. After that, the new majority owner, not you, sets the rental rates, and they've already booked contractors to gut the kitchen. Better pack up those farmhouse dreams. Rachel started crying, like ugly crying, collapsed into a chair and sobbed into her elbow, while Matthew stood there looking like he wanted to punch a wall. Here's the best part. Sonia, the investor I sold to, she was already working on listing the property on short-term rental platforms under her own LLC, which meant the dream of keeping it in the family, dead, burned, ashes. I left them in the lobby, walked back into my office with my heart pounding, hands shaking a little, but also a deep, dark satisfaction settling in my chest. And then I made the dumbest mistake of the week. I checked Reddit, because y'all went in on them. My inbox? Flooded. DMs from people who said they had half-sibling trauma too. Someone even offered to design a t-shirt. 40% owner, 100% done with your BS. Not gonna lie, I laughed way too hard at that. One person messaged me, you didn't break up the family, you just stopped pretending they didn't. That one hit. So yeah, update. They're furious. The house is basically in legal purgatory, and I'm still not done. Because next, they try to sabotage the property. And oh boy, they get caught. The sabotage started small. First, Sonia called me in a fury because someone had ripped the for rent sign out of the front yard, like physically yanked it out, post and all, and left it lying in the gutter. A petty little tantrum. But that wasn't all. A week later, she sent me photos from her contractor. Kitchen cabinets, opened and left hanging off the hinges. Paint splashed across the new tile like someone tried and failed to be artistic. One of the upstairs sinks was stuffed with paper towels until it overflowed. Water damage. Minor, but expensive enough to piss off a property owner. They didn't even try to cover it. Sonia filed a police report. She had security cams installed the day the sale went through. And guess who showed up on camera? Matthew, wearing his old college hoodie. No mask, no attempt at subtlety, just waltzing in through the side door with his own damn key, one they never gave back. I watched the footage on Sonia's laptop. He looked angry, stomping through the house, muttering to himself, knocking over furniture like a brat denied dessert. At one point, he paused in the living room, picked up Grandma's old candy dish, porcelain, hand-painted, the one she used every Easter, and smashed it. Just dropped it on the floor like it meant nothing. That was when the shaking started again. In my hands, in my jaw, my mouth went dry and I couldn't look away from the screen. Because it wasn't just vandalism, it was erasure. He wanted to ruin every part of that house before I, or anyone else, could have a claim to it. Like if he couldn't control the legacy, no one deserved to. Sonia didn't even blink. She emailed the footage directly to the police. Then she leaned back in her chair, sipping iced coffee like this was just Tuesday for her, and said, "We press charges. Trespassing, vandalism, attempted interference with lawful business use. Let the court chew on that." I nodded, still stunned. Then I asked the question I didn't want to ask. Can I be there when they serve him? She raised an eyebrow. You want to be in the room? I smiled. Tight, cold. Number I want to be on the porch. So 2 days later, I was outside Rachel and Colin's house, waiting. Cops pulled up. Marked car, uniformed officer, calm, professional. Matthew answered the door. shirtless, looked half asleep. The second he saw the badge, his whole body tensed. They handed him the papers, explained the charges, read him the rights. Rachel came running down the stairs, shrieking again. This high-pitched, panicked, "Why are you doing this to us?" sob. Colin stood behind her, silent, frozen like he'd just realized how far they'd gone. I stood across the street, leaning on my car, arms folded. Didn't wave, didn't smirk, just watched. Because this wasn't revenge anymore. This was justice. The restraining order hit their mailbox 2 days later. Sonia wasn't playing. After the cops served Matthew, her lawyer fast-tracked a civil injunction barring any of them, Matthew, Rachel, Emma, from stepping foot on the property. No exceptions, no negotiations. The order listed my name too, just for safety. But I didn't need it. I hadn't been near that house since the day I sold. They were furious. Rachel started blowing up my phone. 10 texts in a row, all caps, screenshots of some family photo from 2002 with the caption, "This is what you're destroying." I didn't respond. Then Emma sent this long, guilt-laced email. 4 paragraphs about grandma, about how things used to be, about how I was letting a stranger weaponize grief for profit. I almost felt something. Until I remembered Emma never came to grandma's final hospital stay. Not once. She was too busy with work. But she still made time to pick out curtains for the house. They didn't get it. Still don't. Because this whole thing was never about money. Not for me. It was about being erased my whole life. Being the afterthought. The half. The extra chair at the kids' table. And when Grandma gave me a chance to claim space to exist equally, I took it. And they couldn't stand that. But here's where it gets almost comically pathetic. They tried to rally the extended family. Suddenly, I'm getting cold messages from second cousins I haven't spoken to since middle school. Passive-aggressive comments on old Facebook photos. "Wow, didn't know you were the suing type." Grandma would have wanted unity, not court orders. Even Aunt Diane called me. The same Aunt Diane who once asked if I was technically even related to her. She opened with, "Sweetie, I think you're being really dramatic about all this." I said, "Diane, are you even on the deed?" Click. The only person who didn't reach out? Uncle Pete. And I love that guy. Always saw through the BS. Taught me to change a tire and how to make garlic bread without setting off the smoke alarm. He texted me a gif of someone sipping tea with the caption, "They're big mad." That was it. That was the whole text. And honestly, it meant more than any apology. So yeah, current status? The house is officially under Sonia's control. Bookings open next month. And guess what she named it? The Half House. I damn near choked laughing. But the funniest part? She invited me to stay for the first weekend. Just to test things out. I haven't decided yet, but I'm tempted. Because there's something poetically perfect about me sipping wine on that porch, scrolling through hate messages, while they sit in their suburban cul-de-sacs stewing in their own arrogance. And if you think this is where it ends? Oh no. There's one more twist. Rachel did something desperate, and I have the screenshots to prove it. Update 2. Buckle up, because I didn't think Rachel could stoop lower, but here we are. Last week, Sonia's lawyer calls me, says, "You're going to want to hear this." Turns out, Rachel filed a motion with the court trying to invalidate the sale of my 40% share. She claimed I sold it under emotional duress and that the transaction was predatory. Let me repeat that. The same people who iced me out, mocked my inheritance, and offered me passive income for shutting up, now wanted to argue that I was manipulated into selling. It gets worse. Attached to the motion were fake email screenshots, doctored messages supposedly between me and Sonia that made it look like she pressured me. Total garbage. Timestamps didn't even line up. Fonts were mismatched. Sonia's last name was spelled wrong in one of them. They weren't even good fakes, but they submitted them under oath. That's perjury. Sonia's legal team went scorched earth. They filed a countersuit immediately. Fraud, defamation, abuse of process. I don't know what Rachel was thinking. Maybe that we'd blink first, that she could scare us into backing down. Instead, she lit the match that burned the last bridge. The judge threw out their motion before it even made it to hearing, called it meritless and malicious, then referred it to the county prosecutor. Rachel might actually face charges. I've got the court documents, the receipts, the emails, every lie they told, documented and public record now. And you bet I saved copies. And now, Sonia's doubling the rent. She's already had 2 bookings and 5-star reviews. One of the guests even posted a TikTok from the kitchen. Stunning Airbnb in a historic neighborhood. Great for girls' trips. And guess who saw it? Emma. She commented, "This was my grandma's house. My family built this." Someone replied, "Too bad your brother bought it first." Not gonna lie, I cried laughing. Because here's what they don't understand. And maybe never will. It wasn't about the house. It was about the principle. I didn't burn the family down. I just stopped letting them lock me out of it. And if they ever try to come for me again, I've got 40% more backbone than I used to. Thanks for listening, Reddit. Y'all were the real family through all of this. You ever have that feeling when the chaos finally quiets down and you're left alone with the silence? Not peace, not victory, just stillness. That's what it felt like after the second court dismissal. No more calls, no more texts, not even from Emma. It's like I vanished. Poof, right off the family tree. Half-sibling gone rogue, removed from the group photo. I half expected them to Photoshop me out of old Christmas pictures, and I was fine with it, mostly, until I saw the photo. Someone DM'd it to me, some mutual cousin. No message, just a pic. It was Rachel, Matthew, and Emma standing outside Grandma's house. The half-house now. They were in front of the picket fence, arms crossed like they were staking a claim on sacred ground. Except now, they were tourists. In the background, you could see the new signage, managed by Sonia Holdings, luxury short-term rentals. I looked closer and saw Matthew holding something in his hand. A framed photo. Grandma, in her garden, wearing her ridiculous floppy sun hat. That frame used to sit on the fireplace mantel. It wasn't there when Sonia did her walkthrough. We assumed it got lost or boxed away. Nope, they took it. Probably thought they were rescuing her from us. And that's when it hit me. Not anger, not glee. Grief. Real, raw, pulsing grief. Not for the house, not for the broken family, for her. Because if there was anyone who deserved better than to be used as a pawn in this mess, it was Grandma. She loved us all, even when we didn't deserve it. She never once called me half anything. I was her Noah, her quiet boy, the one who helped her fix the fence when Matthew bailed, the one who actually showed up. And they used her memory like a bargaining chip. So I decided to take one last walk through. Sonia offered me a free stay, remember? I finally took her up on it. I booked 2 nights, alone. No party, no guests, just me. When I walked through that door, it was like stepping into a memory that had been redecorated. New floors, updated kitchen, same layout, but the air felt different, lighter. I sat on the porch swing, the one I sanded with Grandma, the one they left behind because it was too old to match the vibe. And I brought one thing with me, a replacement, not for revenge, not to erase theirs, but to reclaim mine. It was a copy of that photo. Grandma in her garden, floppy hat and all. I put it in a new frame, and I hung it in the hallway, right where the stairs meet the foyer. First thing guests will see when they walk in, a woman who smiled like spring, who loved fiercely, who never once said half. And below it, I left a guest book, just a little note. Welcome to the half house, built with love, protected with fire, and always, always, full of stories. That was all I needed. Closure. The house didn't break the family broke themselves. But Grandma, she still lives there, and I made damn sure they can't take her away again. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email, not a text. A real letter. Like something out of a period drama. Handwritten on floral stationery. The kind that smells faintly like potpourri and guilt. From Emma. I almost didn't open it, but I did. And this is what it said, word for word. Noah, I know I have no right to ask for anything. I just want to say I'm sorry. For everything. You were right. About the house, about us, about how we treated you. We didn't see it then. Maybe we didn't want to. I visited last weekend just to see it. I booked one night under a fake name. I know that sounds creepy. I had to. It's beautiful. You and Sonia did a good thing. Grandma would have loved it. Seeing her photo in the hallway wrecked me. I cried in the stairwell like a kid again. Not because of what we lost, but because I finally realized what we threw away. I hope one day you can forgive me. I'm not asking to be family again. I just wanted you to know I see it now. Love, Emma. I sat with that letter in my lap for almost an hour. Didn't cry, didn't rage, just felt it. The part that wrecked me wasn't the apology. It was the fact that she booked a room under a fake name, that even her apology had to sneak in the back door. That's what it always was with them. Image first, then honesty. But I didn't throw it away. I folded it neatly, put it in a drawer with the deed copies and the court documents and all the chaos that came before. I haven't written her back. Not yet, but maybe I will someday. For now, I've got peace. I've got a house full of guests who never knew the war that happened here. I've got strangers sipping wine on the porch swing, laughing under the fairy lights we strung up. I've got a little box in the living room labeled Half Memories, a place where people leave postcards, stories, old photos of the house if they have them. And tucked inside, a note from a 7-year-old girl who stayed with her parents last weekend. This house feels like a hug. I hope the grandma who lived here was as nice as it smells. She was, kid. She was. And now, so is the house.